Okay, so this section is one that has a lot of stuff in it. Like I alluded to in the introductory video, this is one of those sections where the amount of material that's covered in this section is like the better course of, a book. So hopefully you remember most of it. There are actually stuff that's going to be very important. Lines play a huge role in calculus. It may seem like primitive algebra to be dealing with lines, but being able to understand lines is like a major portion of the calculus. So ideas like slope and intercept, remember how those are? So if I go over and I manipulate my slope of my line, remember what that's really changing is the steepness of the line, right? So being able to deal with that. And then the intercept. So the y-intercept, we can change that, and it changes the location where the line crosses that y-axis, okay? So you want to make sure you remember how to do that, how to manipulate lines is going to be pretty important. And then notice we have two lines here. This is the intersection of those two lines. That's going to play an important role in things as well. So the way you solve the intersection point for two lines is to solve the system of equations involving those lines. Now, oftentimes we're going to get away with just setting those equations equal to each other and solving. So pretty straightforward. Sometimes it'll be a little more complicated, but most of the time we're going to be able to get away with that. But you need to make sure you work through the book, remember how to deal with lines, make sure you understand slope. Just the word slope, we're going to use it a ton of times in this class because a lot of times that's actually what we're interested in is the slope of the lines that correspond to functions that we're dealing with. So make sure you remember lines. Go through, do the review on those. And then we've got quadratic functions. Those are important too. There's all sorts of stuff. The quadratic formula, you're going to need to use that on occasion. Finding the vertex for a graph, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you go through and review that because it's pretty important. All right, one thing that I want to bring up is another business calculus idea that gets brought up in this section, and that is the idea of a price-demand equation and a price supply equation. So basically what happens, there's this relationship between price and then supply and demand. So you have two different functions. The price supply function, if you think about it, well, if I'm supplying a whole lot of something on the market, it's kind of getting flooded, the price is going to go down. If something is if I'm supplying less of something, then the price is going to go up. And it works the other way around as well, where as demand goes up and down, the price changes. If demand is very, very high for a product, I can charge more for it. If demand is very, very low, I can't charge as much for it. There's these relationships between, price, supply, and demand. Now, so how do you go about pricing something? Well, that's where the price demand curve and the price supply curve intersect each other. That's what we call equilibrium. That's basically where the price that I'm willing to sell things at is equal to the price that you're willing to buy things at. That's that intersection point. So we need to be able to solve for that intersection point so we know how to price our product. Okay, so again, you're basically taking those two equations, setting them equal to each other, and solving. So if you can kind of wrap your brain around that, and look at the graphs in the book when you're looking at these problems, make sure you understand why the price-demand equation looks the way it does. Make sure you understand why the price-supply equation looks the way that it does, and it's going to make a whole lot more sense to you. In this course, understanding why things work the way they do is going to make everything a whole lot more easier for you. It might be a little bit more work up front, but later on when you get into some new problem that's confusing for you, if you understand all these concepts, it's going to make it a lot easier to do the new concepts, right, that you're dealing with. So make sure you look into price, supply, demand, how those relationships work, and it'll make more sense when you're given clues inside of a problem, how you're going to put them together in order to come up with the functions you need to actually solve that problem.